Trevor must really be a monitoring spirit, thought Leah as she caught her brother Trevor spying on them for the umpteenth time. Your brother sure has a lot of time on his hand, Daniel told her as he too sensed him hiding behind a tree and staring at them from there. She had gratefully fallen asleep earlier in the middle of Ben's endless chatter. Asher brought it upon himself. Leah still refused to believe that Ben has supernatural powers. There was nothing extraordinary about him aside from the fact he is a paranormalist and her friend. But she was still curious, if indeed Ben was a supernatural creature as Asher claims, what could he possibly be? It seems Asher must have been fed up with Ben's ravings because when she awoke he was nowhere to be found, while Ben had moved his latest obsession to Wikipedia at last. Hallelujah! Said he was studying Greek mythology or something like that. Leah couldn't exactly remember, but she was thankful his research moved his ass out of her room. Asher didn't return as she expected. He called to say an emergency came up and had to leave. Yet, she was bored for a while until Daniel arrived. Apparently, Asher called to tell him that today was her birthday. Truth be told, Leah loved their new interaction. Both were working together unlike before. Inwardly, she knew she has no other option than to make her choice soon, but she was happy they weren't killing each other over her. It made things less problematic. Daniel hardly arrived when Trevor came in and began his brother protects sister from bad guys display. Unlike Trevor, their mother was more welcoming, and though she had given her the "who is this hot dude?" look, nothing else went wrong aside from her probing questions. What's your name? Daniel. Daniel who? Daniel Lucian. How old are you? 24. Your parents? Late. Sorry. So what do you do for a living? Mom. Leah had butt in when the questioning became too prying. What? Jenny cast her an exasperated gaze. Aren't you going to? I need to know everything about the guy hanging around my daughter, she interjected. Daniel scratched his head. I'm not hanging around her, you're her boyfriend then, Jenny filled in while Leah went red in the face. Mom! Don't mom me, young lady! Jenny scolded her sternly. Are you trying to say I'm seeing wrong? You two can't take your eyes off each other, and he's been keeping you company for God knows how many hours now. If you both aren't dating, what are you doing then? Leah scratched her scalp. She had not expected that things would escalate to this level. Why were moms so quick on catching on things like this? Mom, it's a little bit complicated. Yes, I'm her boyfriend, Daniel admitted. Leah turned to face him surprised. You are? Yes, I'm her boyfriend, he said more confidently and determined this time. Her mom was staring at both of them with arms folded and a self-satisfied smirk on her face. Since you decided to come clean, I'll continue with my questions, Leah groaned out loud and face-palmed. Her mom was impossible. What do you do for a living? She still pressed forward with that question. I'm the village chief of Kinney Village. She watched her mom's brow raise questioningly. Kinney Village? Yeah, Daniel confirmed. More like the alpha of the Silver Moon Pack, Leah said in her head. Of course. Little town shares a boundary with the village, right? Jenny asked no one in particular, but Daniel took it upon himself to answer. Yeah, we do, just a few miles away. Perhaps, you should come to visit sometimes. Her mom's expression light up. Really? Yes, I'll fund all necessary expenses. Suddenly Jenny scrunched up her face. Aren't you a little bit too young for that position? Daniel explained. Kinney ways are different, plus the position is hereditary, so after the death of my parents, I had no choice than to take over." Leah shook her head. Daniel was such a smooth liar, but she couldn't blame him. They couldn't just tell her mother he was leading a pack of hormone-raging half-human, half-wolf shapeshifters, and ironically, she was one of them too? Not from the same pack though. Come to think of it, Leah slowly realized she was no different from her father. She was now keeping deadly secrets from her family even more than her father ever did, but it was to protect them. It was better they remained in the dark. "Miss Jenny, I know I might not look much, but I'm more than capable to take care of your daughter and cherish her for eternity," Daniel said, causing Leah's head to jerk up. Her brows furrowed together. Why does he sound as if he was asking for her hand in marriage? Jenny sighed. "Fine, but I still got my eyes on the both of you though," her mom even emphasized by giving them the "I've got my eyes on you" gesture. Because Leah was admitted in the hospital, she was given a simple birthday celebration and Daniel accompanied her to the end of it. The birthday candles were blown off and wishes were made. Her mom gifted her with these new dresses while Daniel gave her an exotic perfume that smelled so good that even her inner wolf moaned in satisfaction. Though she and Daniel didn't do anything suggestive, she saw her mom giving her knowing looks, not to speak of Trevor. Trevor's gaze followed their every movement. He always found opportunities to interrupt both of them. Leah couldn't understand why he was behaving that way. Why did he dislike Daniel that much? This wasn't even the first time she dated. She had once dated this guy from her old school and Trevor never bothered with him, so why wasn't he in support of this one? If Trevor was this protective, what now happens if he accidentally finds out she doesn't have one, but two legitimate boyfriends? She didn't even dare to imagine the scenario. "Mom, I need to get some fresh air," Leah told Jenny before walking out with Daniel. "Fine, but don't stay outside for too long so you don't catch a cold," she reminded Leah while secretly giving her the "please use protection" look. Leah rolled her eyes. What was her mother seriously thinking? And that was how they found themselves sitting on a wooden bench beside the walkway in the hospital's garden with Trevor spying on them. "Don't mind him," Leah laughed after spotting Trevor out of the corner of her eyes trying to conceal himself from sight. "Why don't we fool around with him a bit?" Daniel suggested with a mischievous gleam in his eyes. She drew closer till their faces were nearly touching and whispered, "What are you suggesting?" He drew closer too, this time till their noses were touching with his breath hitting her face making her wolf quiver with excitement. His brow moved. "The rooftop?" "Call me game." They stood up simultaneously and Trevor straightened up as well, ready to trail after them as usual. At first, they walked slowly and in circles, before disappearing from the garden entirely. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm enjoying the misery on his face," Leah said, watching Trevor who was hell-bent on searching for them in the garden. Though it was late at night, the electricity and her great eyesight made everything as clear as day. She was standing beside the rooftop ledge and enjoying the sight below. The hospital was a 5-story. Leah felt butterflies in her stomach when Daniel suddenly encircled her waist from behind. He had been right when he told her the bond would be stronger when she clocks 18, cause she has been so aware of him ever since he walked into her room. "Your scent is becoming stronger," he murmured as his breath hit her neck making her gasp. Leah turned in his arms and found herself face to face while her throat dried up at the sight of him. "Is late already? Wouldn't you go back to your pack?" "Why? Are you chasing me off already?" His hands ran down the curve of her body and she gulped, but her wolf loved it. Kiss him, it chanted in her head, but Leah closed her eyes and shut it out. It was becoming a hassle handling this creature inside of her. When she opened her eyes, Daniel's gaze had darkened and drifted down to her lips. Dan, he sealed her words with a kiss that left her mind swirling. His arms around her waist tightened, pressing her firmly to his body. Leah kissed him back with passion, her hand running through his silky strands and pushing him closer. Her heart pounded against her chest while her inner wolf she thought she had shut out, squealed with excitement when his tongue parted her lips. But Leah pulled away as soon as her lungs began to burn. She needed oxygen. Daniel smiled and leaned his forehead against hers, saying, "Happy birthday, mate. All he ever asked you to do was to take care of the clan." Dan reprimanded Gideon, who remained indifferent to his words. Gideon sneered in response, as if the so-called clan members ever stay at a place. Dan couldn't help but sympathize with Gideon. Of course, everyone knew the Nicoli clan were one of the strongest clans but lacked true mates the most. Due to the curse, Nicoli vampires in need of a mate were always moving and searching, with the hope of finding them, and made it a lot harder to keep track of their whereabouts. Moreover, vampires from the Nicoli clan seemed to have an ability to attract troubles, because each time they're most in need of help, and Dan was always there to tender one, only this time Gideon was sent in his stead. You always knew Raphael was trouble, yet you chose to hang out with them and even told him things he shouldn't have. Dan faltered upon discovering he was all riled up. I wasn't exactly given a choice, Gideon said to him. He sighed and rubbed his temple. You should be thankful Asher has changed lately. If it was the previous Asher, Gideon would be given a punishment he would never forget throughout his immortality. But thanks to Leah, the once stone-hearted Asher was becoming one big softie. Spare that excuse to Asher. Dan brushed him off. Dan couldn't tell what Raphael did with him, but Gideon's eyes were dark red, a sign he had been feeding on human blood for a while now. Asher obviously wouldn't be pleased to see this. But what bothered Dan currently was Asher's weird call, claiming he had seen Katya. If not for the fact vampires couldn't get drunk, he would have surmised Asher was definitely intoxicated while making that call. Due to the fact true mates were hard to find and take up a long time searching for unless one was lucky, vampires as creatures with quite a long lifespan have no choice than to satisfy their desires with other people. Asher would not exactly be called a player, but he has had his own fair share of women over the years, and one of them was called Katya. Katya had been one of Asher's girlfriends and also a pure-blood vampire who was madly in love with him. Everyone, even though they were mates, thanks to the way they were lovey-dovey with each other. Everything was going perfectly well for both of them until Asher suddenly called off the relationship. Katya wanted them to get married since they hadn't found their mates yet, but Asher, being the hedgehog he was, refused. He wouldn't settle for anybody than his true mate. He wanted to wait. So they broke up peacefully, or so Asher thought. Katya took his rejection quite differently. For 200 years plus, Katya tracked, hunted, and killed off women Asher ever dated and was dating, supernatural or not. Katya kept her ears to the ground, hoping to get news about Asher's mate so she could finish her off like she did to the others, but luck was on Asher's side. His mate never came. At first, she had been subtle about her killings, but things like that couldn't be hidden under the sun forever. Asher eventually found out and didn't take things lightly. He tracked down her whereabouts, which wasn't exactly hard considering the fact she was tracking him too. That blissful evening, they had a big fight. Asher wanted her to stop her madness, but Katya had gone too far to stop now. She claimed if it wasn't her, no one else would occupy that position. And the fight began. Unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, Asher killed her, or so he thought, considering the fact he called, saying he saw her. But Dan highly doubted she was alive, though they did not burn her body. He was clearly sure she died that day. Then how? One thing was sure though, if Katya was truly alive, Leah was in danger. Asher better keeps his eyes on his mate, else he loses her just as he lost his. Thankfully, Leah was strong. But were her powers strong enough to fight against a sly, powerful, and experienced vampiress? A mechanical whirring was heard and the door snapped open as Asher walked into his secret lab with a deep scowl on his face. "You're here," Dan announced his presence. "Where is he?" Asher went straight to the point. He was pointed to a vampire who was kept in a large insulated glass tube with several wires attached to his hands. "He's addicted to human blood again?" Asher turned to face Dan, disappointment boldly plastered across his face. "Yes, Raphael made him that way," Dan answered, on purpose hunting that Gideon didn't take it knowingly. Since Gideon was the youngest of them all, he doesn't have much self-control when it comes to human blood, which made him an easier target to be used by the burning eaglet initially. "I can't believe I'm about to rehabilitate a pure blood. You're not even a converted vampire. Why should I go through all this trouble?" Asher took out his frustration on Gideon, who didn't dare to look him in the eyes. Dan quickly and quietly sneaked out of the lab. That one was on Gideon. He had warned him on time. Besides, he had missed Sabrina and she wasn't picking up his call. He doubted something happened to her, else Asher would have informed him when he asked about her, but Dan still couldn't help but get worried. Was she getting cold feet about their relationship again? He teleported to her place and couldn't find her in her room, which looked deserted as if she had moved out. Fear gripped his heart, so he hurried out of there and searched the rest of the house, yet couldn't find her. In a panic, he was about to teleport back to the mansion and inquire about her whereabouts from Asher when he found her in the kitchen. He found her standing in front of the sink and looking out through the window, lost in thought. Dan shook his head. Sabrina would definitely be the death of him. How could she scare him like that? Relieved, he walked towards her and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, startling and jerking her back to reality. He kissed her neck. "I missed you. Didn't you miss me?" Sabrina turned towards him. "When did you arr?" He silenced her with a kiss, swallowing the rest of her question. Sabrina blinked and stood like a tree as his lips moved against her passionately. She didn't see that one coming. He moved back a bit and took her face in his hand. "I wanted a straight answer. I didn't say you should answer my question with a question." His hands moved to her back, molding her to him as he repeated his question. "Did you miss me?" Sabrina looked him straight in the eyes before she reached up and lowered his face to her level, taking the initiative this time. "You have no idea?" she said to him and captured his lips with hers, kissing him long and hard. Dan groaned into her mouth while she wrapped herself around himself as the other hand thread through his hair. He missed her like crazy and didn't hesitate to show it. He hoisted her up in his arms and carried her away from the kitchen sink, pinning her against the wall before trailing hot kisses down her neck. Sabrina moaned in pleasure and threw back her head, giving him clear access to her neck. You don't how much you drive me crazy, he murmured against her skin and let his descended fang graze it softly as he felt her shiver beneath him. Dan, Sabrina gasped, her nails digging into his skin. Do you feel that? Only I can make you feel that way. He grazed his way up to her throat as he began suckling on the skin there. His hand traced the curve of her waist before slipping into her shirt and touching the muscles of her stomach. With her heart threatening to leap out of her chest, she grinds against his arousal, suggesting she was as turned on as he was. He tugged off her shirt, tossing it to the floor while his eyes brimmed with excitement, his gaze sweeping over her body. Sabrina shivered when she saw the way his gaze darkened. It was already obvious how this was going to end. There's no way that is not going down. She was so beautiful, Dan thought, and was about to take her to bed when he remembered her room was empty. There is no bed, he told as his hand climbed up her thigh. Sabrina spoke between moans. We could try the couch. I'll order one later. Her breath caught in her throat when his hand moved inside her panties. Just summon one. I have a lot of fun to catch up with you. Sabrina froze. Dan stopped whatever he was doing when he sensed the sudden change in her demeanor. Why? What's wrong? Sabrina got off him and Dan let her. She wrapped her arms around her exposed torso while putting a distance between them. What is wrong, Sabrina? He urged her to open up to him. Sabrina bit the inside of her mouth. My powers, they're gone. I'm making some arrangements, Daniel said, and Leah turned around to look at his face. They were still on the rooftop, but this time sitting on the bare ground. Leah was seated in between his legs while Daniel tousled and played around with her hair from behind. What arrangement? She asked, her eyes burning with curiosity. So you could spend some time with me in Kinney Village, he told her, and saw the stunned expression on her face. That's nice. But? Daniel asked when he saw the hesitant look on her face. I can't tell if my mom would permit me. You see, to her we're moving too quickly, and you're apparently the second boyfriend I've ever had. You had a boyfriend? He asked in surprise. Leah gulped. Yeah? Like before Asher and I? Leah nodded. She never told them because she didn't consider it necessary, and that was in the past. Though Daniel tried to hide it, but she could tell he was jealous. Werewolves were extremely possessive creatures. It's a miracle he and Asher have not ripped each other apart. She bites the inside of her mouth. I was young then. Besides, there was this peer pressure to date. You look around and everyone almost has a partner, making you feel left out. It seemed as if everyone was having so much fun and that you're missing out on something big. So I got one. But I was young then, now I'm all grown up. Moreover, we didn't do anything much, just kiss, once or twice. Leah said, unsure, but felt the hairs on her back stand on edge when he whispered into her ears. Just kissed? Oh, she shivered. The kiss wasn't that great. We were just kids dating for the first time. Leah tried to do damage control. So you still remember the kiss? He prodded further and she felt like crying. Daniel is not like that. She tried to turn around and clarify the issue, but he wouldn't let her, so she couldn't tell what his expression looked like. Is like what? Leah felt his hot breath hit her neck, but not seeing his face made it a lot harder to figure out what was going on in that mind of his. Daniel, her breath stopped in her throat when he captured her earlobe with his teeth. Unlike the shameless Asher, Daniel was too touchy-feely and couldn't rest without placing his hands on the parts of her body hidden by clothes. If she was an ordinary human, she'd probably be freaked out by his tactility, but she was a werewolf, now half werewolf, and understood why they do it. Physical contact strengthens the bond and exchanges positive feelings and affection. Moreover, their wolves derive joy from it, so why rest? But there was a downside to it. Once immersed in the act, one could accidentally mark and go into mating, which wouldn't have been a huge problem for her if she had only one mate. There was Asher to consider, and it was a huge responsibility. Daniel nibbled at her ear and made her shivery with excitement. Leah turned around in his arms and sat on his laps, facing him this time. "How are you going to convince my mom to let me come to Kinney Village?" Leah successfully changed the conversation. He trailed kisses down her neck before lowering his head beside her ear. "Have you forgotten I'm the chief of Kinney Village? I have my ways." Leah would have laughed at his white lie if Daniel hadn't gripped her butt and pressed her flush against his erection bulging against his trouser. Her heart skipped a beat while her cheeks flushed red. "You must have dated a ton of girls. How are you so skilled in this?" She teased him on purpose. Daniel's hands traveled inside her hospital gown and traced her belly button. "You're the first and would be the last even if I don't choose you in the end?" The question slipped out of her mouth and Daniel froze. For a moment, both of them didn't move and just sat, locked in their ambiguous position. "It will be hard." Leah gulped. "But I would understand," he added, then run his hand through her hair tenderly with loving admiration in his eyes. "I just hope to cherish every little moment with you." Leah blinked. She wanted to speak, but emotions clogged her throat and she pushed him to the ground, taking him by surprise. "What are?" She straddled his hips and silenced him with a slow yet sweet and light kiss. Leah conveyed all her unspoken words, feelings, and gratitude to him through the act. She felt him smile beneath the kiss with his arms wrapping around her waist, molding her to him while she tasted him for a very, very long time. "That was very awesome." Daniel complimented her breathlessly and made her blush. Daniel's hands cupped her cheeks. "Don't think too much about the rejection, it's not your fault." "Neither is it your fault nor Asher's fault," Leah commented. His fingers moved against her cheeks softly. "Sometimes we have to be selfless." He brought her face closer while she was now completely lying on his body. "When that time comes," he went on, "do what your heart tells you to do, even if it hurts any of you." Tears slipped down her cheek. Though she hadn't rejected one of them, she already felt her heart wrench in her chest just at the thought of it. Asher and Daniel had become two people in her life she couldn't live without. Even her wolf was restless, it couldn't bear the thought of separating from its mate. But so was her vampiric side. She had been depending on the wolf side lately. She hadn't realized she was starved of blood. Daniel wiped her tears away. "Yeah, even if it even hurts any of us." Nothing more was said. Leah lay her head on his chest while his hand kept smoothing her hair non-stop, each of them alone with their thoughts. "Leah?" Daniel called her and she glanced up at him, her jaw resting on his chest. "Yes?" He grunted as in pain. "Leah, I think it's high time you got off my body already. There is only so much my little brother can do, hey?" And that was when she felt it. Something poked her from below. Leah was planning on getting off him quietly when an evil thought entered her head and she purposely grinned against him, causing him to grunt and moan helplessly. "And I'm up!" she exclaimed after teasing him almost to the point of insanity. Daniel was so hard, he could not even sit up, so he just lay back on the ground. He suddenly wished he was in a shower, but the universe was set to ruin him right now. Do you need help? Leah asked and squatted down beside him, a gloaty smile on her face. Yeah, you can help by looking away. Looking into my eyes isn't helping my predicament at all. Her hands flew to her mouth, trying to stifle her laughter. I'm so sorry. Leah laughed again, covering her face with her palm. Does it hurt that much? She inquired out of sheer curiosity. Yeah, it hurts. How do I help you? By betting you, which I cannot do. So sorry, you can't help me. Leah shook her head. No, I don't mean that one but the other. She trailed off, biting on the inside of her lips. I haven't done it, but I've read, heard, and watched movies where they use their hands to. No. Daniel rejected her offer before she was even through. She raised a brow, surprised. Why? Daniel heaved. Because I'm an alpha, my wolf is 2 times stronger and harder to control once excited. So unless we're going for the full-on mating, don't dare it. Then he stood up minutes later, much to her surprise. You can now move? Daniel smiled at her. I just needed him to calm down, that's all. Now let me get you back to your room before your mother thinks I'm monopolizing her daughter. Leah laughed at his joke and together they walked back to her room. Trevor must be so exhausted, she commented upon remembering the prank they pulled on him. I bet the moment they arrived in her room, there stood her mom with her gossipy mode on. Leah sighed. Tonight was going to be a long one. Miss Jenny, thanks for allowing me to spend time with your lovely daughter. He appreciated the woman whose cheeks stained red upon seeing his humble gesture. No, it's nothing. She waved it away. I'll be taking my leave, he told Jenny. Then his sight fell on Leah, who was scratching the back of her head awkwardly and looking everywhere but at him. Come on, kiss him goodbye. Jenny nudged her daughter forward. We already kiss. Leah swallowed the rest of her words when she realized what she almost exposed to her mother. This time Daniel simply waved at her and left. All right, young lady. You seem to have a lot to tell me, her mom told her, and Leah groaned inwardly. This is so not happening. Yeah, I'll be back in school next week. Of course, they can occupy my position and enjoy it as long as it lasts, cause I'll be back to take my place. All right, see ya. Caroline ended the call and sighed afterward. She dropped the phone on her nightstand and stared at her reflection on the mirror, specifically focusing on the red hearing aid resting behind her right ear, the only flaw on her perfect body. It had been hard to live with the fact she wouldn't be able to hear for the rest of her life without those devices. She had been disheartened. But she had to survive. Linda had left her, but Alexa was still out there. She had to be strong for her. Suddenly the door to her room was opened, causing her to glance up at her. Mom? Another figure walked in. Dad? How are you doing today, my baby? Her mom came to sit on the edge of her bed while her dad stood beside his wife. I'm good, I feel pretty good. I can't wait to start actually, she told them excitedly. Then she slowly regarded her dad. He hasn't spoken a word since he walked in, which was totally unlike him. In fact, her sixth sense was telling her something was wrong. Why would mom and dad just walk into her room at the same time to say hi? Caroline licked her lips and asked carefully. What are you both doing here? Mom, I thought you had a meeting with the founding families, and Dad, didn't you say something about going to visit Charlie? She slowly watched her parents' interactions. They weren't looking at her straight in the eyes. What's going on with them? A nervous smile appeared on her face. Mom? Dad? What's wrong? Did something happen? Is there something you both are not telling me? Caroline could feel it deep down in her bones. Something has happened, and from their gloomy features, it sometimes seems to be related to her. Suddenly, her mom took her hand in hers, stroking the top of her palm gently. Before any other thing, I want you to know that we did our best. Caroline, Mom, you're scaring me, she said to her mom while having a foreboding that someone had died. Out of nowhere, she felt nauseous, when she suddenly had this absurd thought that her friend Alexa had died. We found her body, Caroline. Alexa is dead. Her heart sank and she quickly retracted her hands from her mother's grip. Alexa is dead kept on echoing in her head. What? She choked. Tears fell from her mom's eyes. I'm sorry, but we've just lost Alexa. Caroline shook her head in disbelief. You can't be serious, it's a lie. Alexa can't be dead? You're all pulling my legs. She knew she sounded stupid. Why would her parents pull her leg over such an important issue? But she still didn't want to believe it. Alexa was not dead. Mom, a sob threatened to choke off her voice. Tell me that's not true. Alexa is not gone yet, right? My poor daughter, she wailed and gathered Caroline into her arms. Mom, tell me she's not dead, she cried, this time aloud and bitterly. It's going to be okay, my child, her mom comforted her, smoothing her hair and rubbing her back as Caroline cried on her shoulder. Stop crying, sweetie. Her father offered his own words. I know it's pretty hard for you and it's never going to be easy losing someone you love, but it gets easier the more you keep on holding on to life and cherishing the memories. It took a lot of time and effort, but Caroline eventually calmed down, but that sharp glint in her eyes was gone. It would really take time for her to stop grieving. We're heading to Alexa's place right now to see her parents, and if you don't want to come, I totally understand, Mom said, but she nodded her head. No, I'll come. I need to come. She wiped away the tears that flowed down freely from her eyes. Her mom took a deep breath. All right, we would give you a few minutes to wash away those tears and meet us downstairs. Caroline felt lethargic, as if she had lost all the will to live. The memories she spent with Alexa began to play like a movie in her mind, and she realized horribly, she was never a good friend. She realized late. She didn't do a lot of things for Alexa nor Linda. Instead, she treated them like her personalized servants. Caroline washed her face in the sink and dolled up a bit to liven her dull expression. Amid the makeup, her red-rimmed eyes and puffy eyes as a result of crying still stood out a total waste, if she would say, but she didn't want to go there looking like a zombie. Suddenly Caroline heard a message come into her phone. She dropped her makeup brush and picked up her phone. She opened the message but frowned. It was from a strange number, but that was until she read the contents. Unknown number, thank you for being my friend. Caroline paled, then froze. She released a startled gasp before her hands flew to her mouth. Alexa must have sent this to her before whatever happened to her. A wretched sob tore from her throat again, and this time she cried more heavily than earlier. She was such a horrible friend, yet Alexa still loved her, and now the guilt was hurting her so much. She should have done a lot of things for her, show her every day she was grateful she got her as a friend, but it was too late. There's no turning back the clock. Caroline's brows narrowed together when she discovered a second message. Unknown number, Leah. She scratched the back of her head in confusion. Leah? Who was Leah? Suddenly her eyes widened. Could it be Alexa knew the identity of whoever murdered her and died trying to send this? Was this the name of the murderer? Oh my God, her parents need to see this. Mom? Dad? Dan, please calm down. Sabrina tried to calm her boyfriend, who was as furious as a bull. I should calm down. Sabrina, he almost got you killed. He pointed out angrily. But I didn't die, did I? You could have, you know how cruel the council can be. I know, Dan, but it was a mistake. Ben didn't mean to harm me, for Christ's sake, she tried to reason with him. But you, Christ! Dan, I'm not Monique, she said in a burst of anger. Dan froze. Sabrina froze too. Finally, she has done it. I didn't mean it that. But Dan didn't stay to listen to the rest of her words, cause he vanished right away. Great, Sabrina sighed and rubbed her temple, her head was throbbing. Monique was Dan's maid who mistakenly died while rescuing someone else. Since then, he hasn't opened up his heart to someone else, and now he finally has. Dan has this phobia that something bad is going to happen to her without him by her side. Fiery posset catus. Sabrina said a spell and the half-finished dishes from earlier began to wash by itself, while a broom resting against the door began to sweep the floor without assistance. All of a sudden, someone slow claps from behind, and everything stopped moving. Sabrina rolled her eyes and turned to face Raphael, who just stole an apple from the fruit basket on top of the kitchen counter. Your love story is such a dramatic one, he said, and took a huge bite out of the fruit. I don't remember inviting you here, Raphael. What do you want? Sabrina asked with a scowl on her face. Raphael pouted his lips. Is that how you treat someone who helped secure your powers? I'm in no mood to play games with you. When are you going to tell the others you still have your powers? He still pressed on with his questions. Contrary to what the others thought, she had not lost her powers that night. After she discovered Ozark and Raphael's powers work hand in hand, she secretly got them to replicate her when she received Amala's summon. Sabrina had always been smart, so she had been suspicious when Amala summoned her at such a critical moment. Amala had taken her copy's powers, not hers. So she struck a deal with Raphael, replicating her in exchange for a favor. It's better they don't know now. When the time is right, I'll tell them. Besides, the council thinks I'm powerless and it's best it remains that way, she told Raphael, who gave her an indifferent look. Then what about our deal? He reminded her. What do you want, Raphael? He smiled. You know what I want, Sabrina. Sabrina's expression darkened. You have got to be kidding me. Zeus begot Aeacus, Agdistus, Angelos Aphrodite, Apollo, Ares, Artemis, Athena, Dionysus, Iliotheia, Enyo, Epiphus Eris, Ersa. Ben rubbed his neck. His father must have quite an insatiable libido. He read through the rest. Hebe, Helen of Troy, Hephaestus, Heracles, Hermes, Lacedaemon, Minos, Pandia, Persephone, Perseus, Rhadamanthus, the Graces, the Ori, the Lydii, the Muses, the Moirai. What was this? Was his father trying to imitate Solomon of the Bible? But if he was truly a demigod, then he has too much competition. How would he get his father's attention to talk more win his love? Ben shook his head. No wonder he was abandoned here on earth. Hera was definitely not his mother, else he would be a son of a god, not a demigod. Moreover, Hera hated all of Zeus' illegitimate children. Maybe he should call his parents and tell them. Ask them what? Hi, Mom and Dad, the principal of my school who is actually a vampire in disguise think I might not really be a human? Sure, that should suffice, and the next day, he would probably be locked up in a mental hospital. Besides, even if his parents or one of his parents was the god or goddess in disguise, what were the chances they would confess? Sigh, this was so hard to figure out. But he has to uncover the truth soon, he can't wait to manifest his superpowers. His goddess Leah would be so awestruck when she sees his abilities. But what would his powers be? Lightning? Telekinesis? Super speed? Invisibility? Laser vision? Flight? Teleportation? With Dan's ability, he could barf from one place to another. How cool would that be? Ben was demonstrating and imitating Dan in action when the said Dan appeared right in front of him, startling him. Christ! His hand flew to his chest. How many times do I have to tell you about knocking before? He was yet to finish his words when Dan grabbed him and both disappeared, only to appear on top of a bridge. He was in midair, hanging outside the bridge railing, and the only thing stopping him from falling was Dan holding onto his collar. What man? Ben cried out in terror, which was heightened when he looked below and saw the dark waters with the waves crashing against each other. I warned you! Dan roared, and he shivered. Gosh! He wants to pee. Warned me for what? Sabrina! You dare put her in danger! Hot uncontrollable tears began to spring from his eyes, and he rubbed his palms together, pleading with Dan. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt her. Please spare me, he begged, watery snot running down his nose. But Dan said in a voice that sounded more robotic than human, too late, and he let go. Ah! Ben screamed as gravity began to take place. He was guaranteed to die tonight. There was no way he would survive this fall. Even if he does survive, the stormy wave would hit and snuff the life out of him. But there was one question on his mind just a few seconds before he plunged into this dark water. Do demigods die? Maybe he had to die for his powers to manifest? After all, there's this hypothesis that one has to die or on the brink of death or distress for their inner powers to be liberated. Take Catwoman for example. She had to die for cute-looking cats to revive her and bless her with such ability. Or Ballin Allen, lightning struck him on the chest and wham! He awoke 6 months later to become the Flash. Don't even go near Deadpool, he had to really die to achieve that awesome regenerative ability of his. So what if it was the same case with him? Leah died also and woke up to be a hybrid? What if such fate awaits him too? A satisfied smile curved his mouth. Maybe this death was a blessing in disguise. Ben closed his eyes and felt the cold air sting his face. He spread out his arms wide and savored the feelings. He was flying without wings. 1, 2. He started a countdown to the moment when he finally drops into the... Wait a minute. Where was he? Ben felt something was wrong when his fall was delayed and so opened his eyes, only to realize they were currently standing on top of a speeding train. He felt bile rise to his throat at once. He glanced up at Dan, who said to him coldly, I thought about it and came to the conclusion that letting you die by drowning is too merciful a death. Ben felt like dying, but he doesn't want to die yet. He had always reverenced and feared Asher more than his henchmen, but now, Dan looked like King Yama to him. Even if he was a demigod, there was a 0% chance he would survive being crushed into a bloody and messy pulp by the train. Just looking down on the spinning train wheels made him have double vision. "I'm sorry," he shouted because of the speed of the air rushing by. "Tell that to Hades," Dan retorted and teleported away just as the train rattled and Ben shrieked his lungs out. Because he was partially standing, he was swept away and would have fallen over if he hadn't somehow reached out his hand and grabbed onto the ladder track attached to the body of the train. Beads of sweat broke out on Ben's forehead. Dan really wants him to die. He wondered if anyone would even notice he was gone. Talk more dead. Dan was proficient at covering up his tracks and no one would probably figure out he died from falling off a train. Where was his so-thought ability when he needed it? With a loud grunt and effort, he climbed up the train while it was moving and hoisted himself back up on the roof again. This time he didn't dare stand straight in fear of falling over but just knelt and clung on to the roof, but that was when he saw it. The train was about to enter a tunnel and the clearance between the train and the tunnel wall was so small that it wouldn't accommodate him even if he lay on top of the roof. And it was too late to jump off. Ben closed his eyes. But the painful impact never came. Ben slowly opened one eye after the other slowly, only to discover that Dan was standing beside him and they were in a different location. Lips pursed together, he wanted to protest against Dan's mental torture but his feet slipped and he would have fallen had Dan not grabbed his hand and steadied him. Shocked and breathless while the wind hit his face, he took a look around and it finally dawned on him, they were on a mountain top. The air was cold, though the view down was breathtaking yet misty and cloudy. Abruptly, Ben began to realize something was wrong with his body. He was having a hard time breathing. "Where are we?" he wheezed. Dan replied calmly. "Everest." Ben scrunched his eyes in deep concentration before confusion, then panic set in. "Wait a minute, like Mountain Everest?" A smile that made goosebumps appear on his arms curled up Dan's mouth and he replied, "What do you think?" It was like a bomb went off in Ben's head. Mount Everest. Like the highest point on the planet at 29,035 feet. No wonder he felt like he was running on a treadmill and breathing through a straw, the oxygen was that little. It was official, he's dead. "Dan, I know you are angry at me but let's look at this issue diplomatically." He tried to knock some sense into him but Dan wasn't in the mood for that. "You should have thought of that before you endangered her life." "No." Ben raised his hand and tried to complain but a kick to the stomach sent him flying 8,850 meters to the ground. Ben was sure he saw Hades sitting on his throne in the underworld and willing him to come, or so he imagined, cause the next moment, he found himself back on the hospital rooftop. He at once went on all fours and spent the next minutes puking his guts out. Ben threw up everything he ate, both the food he stole from Leah's room in the afternoon while she was sleeping. What was that? This punishment was totally not acceptable. "How do you feel?" Dan, who squatted down beside him, asked with a straight face. Ben looked up and gave him a death glare but a wave of nausea overwhelmed him and he went back to vomiting. "I guess you enjoyed the ride," Dan taunted him, then gripped Ben's hair and brought his face up. "Sabrina is the only woman I have left. So thank your lucky stars she's hale and hearty and I won't remind you to behave the next time," he warned through his teeth and let go of him before teleporting away. Ben lay on his back before a smile stretched his lips. He can't wait to get stronger. With a sluggish moan, she turned to the other side of the bed only for her hand to feel something cold yet fleshy. Her eyes snapped open and connected with piercing green orbs that scared the shit out of her. "Christ, Asher!" she exclaimed and sat up. "You scared the hell out of me," she complained, tugging a stray lock of her dark hair behind her ear. "I'm sorry," Asher apologized, reached out his hand, and pulled her towards him. She didn't resist, instead snuggled against his chest. "You missed a lot today," Leah told him, and he glanced down at her with curious eyes. "Tell me, what did I miss?" he asked interestedly. Daniel came. There wasn't much surprise in his eyes. "I know, I called him yet," he told me. "We played a prank on Trevor who wouldn't let us have a private time together. We apparently sped away and he spent the next hour marathoning the hospital in the guise of searching for us," she narrated to him, and saw a smile grace his lips. "You're bad." He pinched her cheeks. Leah laughed heartily. "What do you expect me to do?" he kept tailing us. "I just thought of keeping him busy for a while." After a while of vigorous laughing, she was calm enough to relay the bad news. "We have a problem though." He lifted his head. "What is it?" She licked, then bit on her lower lips nervously. "My mom kind of believes Daniel is my boyfriend for a while." Asher didn't say anything, which scared her. His expression was blank and his eyes were boring straight into hers, making her uncomfortable. Leah began to stammer. There was, and nothing I see. "Oh, it's better." Hey. Confusion crossed her face. "What is he talking about?" "At least one of us would be readily available to protect you and your family without restriction." Leah blinked. She totally wasn't expecting this. He did a total 360 degrees surprise on her. She shook her head with a doubting expression. "You're not angry? Mad? Furious? Disappointed?" Betrayed. Asher silenced her with a sudden, short yet hot kiss that left her breathless and stunned. "I'm looking at the bigger picture here, Leah. I know I can be selfish sometimes, but your safety matters above any other thing, and if it means losing you so you could survive, then so be it," he said decisively, truthfully. Leah was moved by his words. She was touched by the level of concern her mates have for her, but her brows couldn't help but furrow together at his comment. "It's still unfair to you. You're one of my mates too," she insisted. Then his lips curled up. "Fine, he's your boyfriend, but you've forgotten I'm still your principal at school," his mouth reminded her suggestively, just as his hands moved to her ribs and he started to tickle her. "No, Asher! Stop!" Leah screamed with laughter as he tickled her. "You say? Tickles." She struggled to speak as a result of the sensation brought on by the trickling. But he still didn't listen and continued to tease her without noticing the subtle changes in Leah's demeanor until she out of nowhere flipped him over with a momentum that made the bed squeak and snap. A part of the bed was broken. Asher was stunned. How did his mate get this strong? He knew the amount of force that was applied on him. An ordinary human would have something broken in his body by now. Then he looked up and frowned. Leah's eyes had dilated and darkened. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" He tried to touch her face, but she grabbed his hand in a tight grip and pinned it to the bed. "Leah," he whispered warningly when she suddenly lowered her head and bit him hard on the neck. Asher tried to withdraw his hands, but she bared razor-sharp teeth at him, which left him more confused. Razor-sharp teeth were signatory features of werewolves, while fangs were signatory attributes of vampires, so why was she baring those teeth at him? Why was her aggressive werewolf side trying to seduce him? "Leah, it's true I like my woman being proactive in bed, but right now, you're scaring the shit out of me," Asher confessed, but the person in question growled at him. "Call me mate." "Ma, wait, what? Call me mate?" she demanded furiously as her eyes flashed a glowing yellow then switched to a glowing blue. "Fine. Mate. You're my mate. You're my mate, Leah." He surrendered while eyeing the talons that were slowly caressing his face. "Good boy, our mate is good, a good boy," she said in a sing-song while Asher was praying internally, "Please get that talon away from my face." Raphael just drained him of werewolf venom yesterday, and in the process of feeding, he hungrily killed an innocent human. He wasn't sure he would be able to take that venom being in his system again. But he was snapped out of his thoughts when Leah lowered her head and began to nibble his ear affectionately, causing Asher to grasp at the sheets beneath him. Was she even aware she was turning him on? She moved to lick his ears, then face, and finally settled on his neck. Asher knew he was now officially a dead man. "Leah, don't mate." He realized his mistake and corrected himself with immediate effect. "Mate, please don't." But it seems his pleading made her all the more excited because she kissed him there, on the nape of his neck, causing him to moan loudly. That place wasn't considered one of the erogenous zones for nothing. His self-control was slowly slipping. "God, please help me." While he was distracted, her hands slowly unbuttoned the first top buttons and delved inside his shirt. Asher's throat dried up. The girl was slowly killing him, and the worst was that he couldn't escape. She held him hostage with her talons. Just being in a close perimeter with it worried him. "Lee mate, have mercy on me. I don't know how much longer I can hold myself back," he pleaded, but she smirked at him. She ripped off the rest of the button. Asher grunted and writhed, but the she-devil went ahead to even touch him down there. He moaned in pleasure and swarmed in the sea of sensation she continuously gave him, but when he was close to coming, she stopped. Asher screamed profanities. His eyes darkened, and he somehow overpowered her and rolled her over on her back finally. "What do you think you're doing?" he yelled at her. "Mate. No good boy." Leah growled at him and tried to roll him over, but Asher stood his ground and they began to struggle till they rolled off the bed and fell on the ground. Asher suffered much of the impacts since she used him as a cushion during the fall and was yet to recover when he heard the ripping of clothes, followed afterward by the snapping of bones. His eyes flew open. It better be not. Yes, it was. He was more than shocked to see a majestic yet gigantic framed wolf standing right in front of him with a threatening snarl. "Climb up, mate." He heard this voice in his head and was dumbfounded. This must be a product of his hallucination. The wolf barked at him just as the thought came into his head again, this time more sternly. "Climb up the bed." Was she talking to him? In his head? What the Asher put his hand up and cautiously crawled back into the bed. The white wolf watched his movement with narrowed eyes before hopping onto the bed after him. He knew he was in a tight spot and didn't try anything stupid, like trying to escape or overpowering her. Since her wolf recognized him as one of the other mates, he was probably in safe hands, right? Probably. The voice was heard again. "Lie down and put your arms around me." Asher's lips quirked up. That wouldn't have been a strange request if she was in her human form. "You don't want to?" "Of course not." Asher gulped, then carefully placed his hand on where he would gladly like to think was its stomach and not its butt. He heard her purr, "Good boy," then shut its eyes. Asher lay like a statue, he didn't even dare to remove his hand even after he was sure the wolf had fallen asleep. What the hell just happened? One moment he was playing around with his mate, the next moment his mate's wolf paid him a visit, a scary one. He would never forget this one easily throughout his immortality. Asher's attention was grabbed when he touched a warm body. She was back thankfully but naked. He felt his below stir and quickly looked away. Temptation seems to be his friend today. Asher stood up from the bed and wrapped Leah warmly with the duvet, making sure to cover her whole body. Then, he picked up his phone and called Daniel. There has to be a reasonable explanation for this. A rough kick at the back of the leg forced them to their knees. Judith stared at them with a hardened expression. It's the both of them. I caught them trespassing on our territory. Judith explained to Daniel, whose face was tense from thinking. Daniel rubbed his chin before gesturing to Ryan, who stepped forward and grabbed a fistful of their hair, tugging their head backward, and took a sniff. His nose wrinkled, confirmed, they're really from the ranger park. He then took a step back. Judith and her team had been on patrol when they caught the two werewolves encroaching on their border. She brought them to the dungeon and mind-linked the alpha and his beta at once. Daniel took a seat in front of the two prisoners. He scratched the space between his eyebrows, then asked, "Why are you both here?" He readjusted himself on his seat and crossed his leg over the other in a businesslike manner. No answer. I don't remember sending you guys an invitation, so why did you come into my territory without my permission? He repeated his question, this time firmer and sterner. One of them lifted his face and Daniel couldn't help but wince internally. Judith really beat him black and blue. His face was a mass of purple bruise and his eyes were bloodshot and almost hidden under puffy skin with swollen lips. Also, his partner was not left out. He too featured a bruised face and busted lips. Judith was really savage. Well, both of them were werewolves and would heal in no time. No hard damage done, but the pain was real. Why? Are you that scared? He scorned outright at Daniel. Ryan hissed and took a step forward, with the aim of beating the fear of God into him, but Daniel raised his hand and he halted his plan. Daniel leaned towards the prisoners who were on their knees with their hands tied strongly behind their back. Why should I be scared? He asked them amusedly. Just admit that you're scared we might take over your pack, he spat, making Daniel literally shoot fire from his eyes. It's a known fact that werewolves are territorial creatures and encroaching on it means serious trouble that could even lead to war. Alphas greedy for expansion and vying for the territory that belongs to other packs wasn't a new thing and often leads to war or fighting to the death in which the winner takes over. In a situation like a war, both sides would continue to destroy each other until their alphas compromise and form a treaty. But lives and properties would have been lost in the process, which was why some considerate alphas prefer fighting to the death and saving their pack from experiencing the misery of war. That was how Daniel had lost his own father. Though his father won the battle, he suffered many injuries and couldn't survive. His mother, who couldn't bear the pain of losing her other half, her destined soulmate, ended her own life, and Daniel became the youngest alpha to lead a pack he ruled starting from the age of 10. It wasn't easy to keep the pack of power-hungry and hierarchical werewolves together, his relatives being the number one oppressors. Werewolves were naturally loyal creatures, but not when greed sets in. His relatives wanted to rule the pack, reap where they didn't sow, but thankfully, Daniel had been born an alpha. Yes, he was stronger but he was younger, so he had to train more than the average alphas did and studied more than others just to keep his position. Luckily, Aunt Phoebe and some of his father's faithful followers who had not been soiled by his relatives, helped him out. Daniel couldn't just sit and watch all his father's efforts to go to waste. His father had fought and sacrificed himself for the pack, and for him no one would take what rightfully belongs to him. Eventually, his perverseness paid off cause he finally grew stronger than they could ever imagine. Since they wanted the throne, they must go through him first. A fight to the death duel was organized again, and this time, Daniel used that opportunity to wipe away his oppressors. But as cruel as he looked to the public, he still had a heart. He gave their remnants an option: live quietly in the pack or be exiled. Many agreed while the rest were banished, never to return. But it seems his relatives' ignorant and dumb descendants really want a death wish. Daniel wasn't stupid. Alpha Tristan wouldn't dare provoke him unless he had an insider, a spy in his pack. Does your Alpha know he's asking for a war he can't win? Daniel asked coldly. The prisoner snorted demeaningly. What? We can't win? Your pack is nothing compared to Ryan, who couldn't take his degrading comments anymore, punched him right on the face and shut his mouth up. You would not talk to our Alpha that way, he warned, baring his teeth threateningly at him. The prisoner gave Ryan a hateful look but couldn't do anything. He wasn't in his territory and was bound. He couldn't find back. Back to our discussion, Daniel told him, and dismissed Ryan with a wave of his hand. What do you want from my pack? You both must be here for something, Daniel asked his other partner this time. As if I would tell you, he sneered. A cruel smile crossed his face. Daniel took a deep breath and stood to his feet. Make yourself comfortable then, he told them as Judith approached him. Inject a reasonable amount of wolfsbane into their bloodstream. Let's see if it would help loosen their mouth a bit, he instructed her, and saw the panic on their faces. Everyone knew how lethal wolfsbane was to a werewolf. Even being in close vicinity would make them sick. Talk more inside of them? It was torture or instant death if not monitored and controlled. Yes, Alpha, she bowed and got moving. Daniel strutted out of the dungeon amid the prisoner's rageful curses, his beta following along as usual. Tristan is declaring war, Ryan opined immediately. Let's not jump to a conclusion, Daniel objected. But it's obvious. What other sign do we need? It's obvious. Daniel stopped in his tracks and stared at him. Choose a dispensable werewolf and send him to the ranger pack as a delegate. Let him inquire of Alpha Tristan, the intention of his men encroaching on my territory. Ryan's eyes narrowed. He perfectly understood what he meant by dispensable. If Alpha Tristan really plans on waging a war against the Silver Moon Pack, whosoever they sent as a messenger wouldn't return alive. As you wish, Daniel acknowledged his orders just as one of the guards called his attention. Alpha Daniel, you have a visitor. Daniel frowned. A visitor at this time of the night? Who is it? It's the vampire, Asher. Daniel's frown deepened. Had something happened to Leah? Why would Asher come to see him this late at night? Where is he? In the visitor's room. Thank you. The guard turned and left to his position. Why do you think he is here? Ryan questioned. Something must have happened to Leah, Daniel replied, but inwardly, instinctively knew it wasn't the case. If their mate was in danger, he would have felt it through the bond, but nothing came to him. Daniel started towards the direction of the receiving room and flung the door open. Ryan eyed the guards at the door and dismissed them at once. taking their place behind the closed door. Whatever discussion there was top secret and should not be heard, anyone could be a spy. "Why are you here?" The words hardly left his mouth when Asher began to unbutton his shirt right in front of him, causing his eyes to widen in shock. "Whoa, seriously Asher, I'm not interested in men. Just because we share the same mate doesn't mean we should share each other. What rubbish are you talking about?" Asher interrupted the stupid werewolf, who shielded his face with his palm. Daniel lifted his hand away from his face, but his throat dried up at the sight of Asher's pale and perfectly sculpted body. Why was his heart beating so fast? "Seriously, he's straight. What are you doing then?" he asked. Daniel took a step back when Asher stepped towards him, causing him to frown slightly. "What is wrong with you? What are you doing then?" Daniel's hands flew to his chest protectively. "I'm not going to let you take advantage of me, even if you're our mate's other mate, idiot." Asher rolled his eyes in disbelief and reached out his hand, grabbed Daniel's head and brought his face closer to his neck. "See that?" Daniel's eyes widened from shock to disgust. You're here to show off your hickey? Didn't we discuss this in our rules?" "It is not a hickey," Asher interrupted him. "I think Maya's werewolf side marked me." "What? No, this can't be happening." Daniel refused to accept that. Leah purred loudly like a kitten as she stretched herself fully on the bed. She sat up, looked around her room with sleepy eyes, then lay back on her bed, and tugged the bed sheet over her naked body, going straight back to sleep. The morning was still young. Suddenly, one of her eyes snapped open. "Naked body!" "Ah!" Leah screamed and scrambled off the bed in a haste, but when she saw herself in her birthday suit, she quickly grabbed the duvet and covered herself with it. What happened? Why was she naked? The last thing she remembered was Asher tickling her. "Oh my God!" she gasped while her hands flew to her mouth. Had Asher taken advantage of her? But that seems impossible. Asher would not do that. He knows her circumstance. Moreover, her mate was a gentleman. He wouldn't have his way with her without her permission. Leah swallowed, her hands moving downward just to check. Nothing happened. Silly Leah was startled when her wolf suddenly spoke to her. Hands clasped over her chest, she asked her wolf, "It's strange, I can't remember anything." She heard it chuckle, "That's because I took over." "You did what?" Leah paled at once. She hasn't tamed her wolf yet, which was why they were still battling for dominance. "You heard me right." Leah closed her eyes and reined in her anger. This beast inside of her was now an essential part of her? Sure, but that doesn't give it the right to infiltrate and disrupt her daily life. "You know I can hear anything going on in that head of yours," it pointed out, making Leah's anger skyrocket. "You had no right." "Oh please, Asher is my mate." "Our mate," it corrected. Leah felt her head throb. Communicating with her telepathically was always quite a hassle. She rubbed her temple and tried her best to calm down. "I just woke up on my bed naked with no recollection of what transpired between Asher and me. I have no idea what you did with my body. And I've told you, nothing happened." It paused, then Leah heard her laughter in her head. "Unless you secretly wanted something to happen." Leah's eyes widened, her cheeks flushed at once. "Of course not," she denied its claim. Says someone whose heart is pounding like the thundering hooves of 1,000 wild stallions. It continuously teased Leah, whose blush deepened. Sometimes her wolf was so naughty, she had no idea what to do with it. But Leah still refused to accept that truth. I did not. She was abruptly interrupted by the memory her wolf sent into her mind. A memory of Asher lying on the bed while she was touching him down there. Her soul flew out of her body. Leah stood rooted to the ground, mouth agape from shock and unable to form a speech. What did she just see? She of all people, touched Asher down there shamelessly? Leah collapsed against the wall, her legs suddenly felt weak. How was she going to face Asher later? Her wolf rolled its eyes. What's this? Why are you behaving like a timid virgin? I'm a virgin, oh right. It remembered, but its eyes suddenly shone with excitement. Gives us more reason to break it. Like seriously? Come on, how long are you going to resist our mate? I can't take it any longer. Wait a minute, break what? Leah was flabbergasted. Why was this stubborn wolf taking such a sensitive issue so casual? I get that you're a horny creature who is ridiculously open with showing off her affection, but can you please be a bit reserved? I'm not an animal. Leah complained. You're technically an animal, Leah countered. Because you're inside of me, I am now you, Leah. We're one and it's high time you choose a mate. I'm tired of yearning for my other half when he's obviously within reach. Leah's mood turned sullen. It's complicated. I can't seem to make a choice. I don't want to hurt any of them humans and their stupid emotions. Leah scowled. What do you know? You're just interested in mating, as simple as that. If you don't make a decision soon, I'll just make the decision myself. Leah's expression shifted and her eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? No, a wake-up warning. I can just have my way with the pale one. It made her choice. You're not touching Asher. Leah stood her ground. It seems she had to get help from Daniel. Her wolf was getting out of hand. I like our wolf mate, but I'm an adventurous wolf. The vampire wouldn't be so bad. Have you seen his? I am so not having this discussion with it, and also, I won't let you use my body the way you intend. Leah rebuked her firmly. She's the host and her master, so her wolf must obey her. You are not having X with. Who did you have X with? The door snapped open and Jenny walked in with a bewildered expression. Leah was stunned. Did she say that one out loud? Mama's here. You've been a naughty girl lately. Her wolf goaded her, withdrawing right away and left her to face the consequences all alone. Anger surged through her veins. She had been so distracted she didn't notice when her mom walked in. She bet her wolf provoked her right at that moment on purpose. Mom! Leah laughed nervously, wrapping the duvet tightly around her chest. Who did you have X with? Her mom repeated her question and began to step towards her. It's not what you think, Mom, she tried to explain to her mother, who had already conjured the scenes in her head. Did Daniel come back to the hospital room after we left and you both did it there? Jenny queried. Leah went red in the face. Jenny gasped in disbelief. You both had bed-breaking X? She questioned, this time pointing to one of the crooked footboards. Bed-breaking X? Leah was mortified. What dirty thoughts was her mom making up? Even she had no idea what happened to the footboard. Her wolf wouldn't let her in on the details. Mom, stop it for Christ freaking sake. Leah snapped at her, and that worked. Daniel didn't come back here after you left. I didn't have X with anybody. You just misunderstood everything. You can't exactly blame me for misunderstanding. I heard you talking about X. The footboard was broken. you're wrapped in your duvet for God knows why, and I just discovered that my daughter who just turned 18 yesterday has a boyfriend. So tell me, what exactly do you expect me to think?" There was a short silence before Leah raised her head and rendered an apology to her mom. "I'm sorry," she added at once, "and I'm not just sorry for creating a misunderstanding or yelling at you, but for a lot of other things. I'm truly sorry." Jenny gave the look. "What's she talking about?" Leah opened her mouth to say something when a knock sounded on the door. "Dress up," she told Leah, who hurried into the bathroom. Jenny opened the door with a smile on her face, expecting to see her daughter's friends or her kids, but was surprised when she saw two grown men standing at the door. The both of them weren't familiar at all. She frowned. "Good morning. How may I help you gentlemen?" "Good morning. Are you Jenny Houston?" one of them inquired, causing her to strengthen up. Jenny suddenly had a feeling these people weren't ordinary. "Yes, I am. Why do you ask?" He flashed his badge at Jenny. "Detective Julie Howard, LT Police Department. Can we have a minute with your daughter, Leah Darlington?" Confusion and panic swept over Jenny. "What do you want from my daughter?" Her voice was tensed and guarded. "We just want to talk to your daughter," the other detective told her, showing her his badge. "Ask her some questions." Jenny used her body to block the entrance. "About what?" "About the disappearance of Alexa Shawn." "What has that got to do with my daughter?" Jenny attacked. "We've questioned other students at the party that night. Your daughter Leah is the only one left," he explained calmly. "Mom, who is on the door?" She heard her daughter's voice from behind, then reluctantly let them in. Leah was surprised when two strange men walked into her room. One was taller than the other and had this long straight hair with a goatee, and her nose picked up a cigarette smell from him. "Detective Julie. Relax, we just need to ask you some questions." But Leah couldn't relax. There was something strange about that second detective. He had dark hair and eyes, but those eyes were secretly regarding her slowly. How could she not know? She was a supernatural creature after all. Chris Maird, the second detective, introduced himself, her gaze resting on her more than usual. "So, what do you want to know?" Leah asked as soon as she broke the handshake. "Where were you on the night of the attack at Garcia's home during the party?" "Where were you on the night of the attack at Garcia's home during the party?" Leah was a little taken aback at the directness of the question. Of all questions, they had to start with that one? She was sitting on her bed with her mom positioned on the edge and staring at the two detectives who were seated on the couch opposite her bed with pens in their grip and a short note resting on their laps. "Of course I was at the party. Where would I have been?" she asked back. "According to our investigation and testimonies from students, it was revealed that Alexa and Caroline left with you and wasn't seen again until the end of the quake." "Detective, I was at a high school party. You do know what happens in such an event, right?" "I was wasted for the rest of the night. My brain isn't that good," Leah told him in a straightforward manner, her tone firm and unwavering. She made sure no trace of nervousness was found on her face, since detectives were good at reading facial expressions and body language. "None of the students saw you leave the party," Chris said this time, which elicited a response from Jenny. "You said you were going to ask her just a few perfunctory questions, but right now it feels like you're interrogating my daughter," Jenny complained right away. Shawn disclosed, "Alexa was found dead yesterday." A flicker of shock crossed Leah's features which Chris didn't fail to capture. Jenny gasped, Poor child, hands resting on her chest. How did she die? According to the medical examiner, she died from a blunt trauma to the head and a stab to the stomach, Chris replied. Jenny's hands flew to her mouth. Unconsciously she reached for her daughter's hand, clasping it so tightly. She couldn't help but feel the urge to hold on to her child right now. What if it had been her own daughter in this situation? She wouldn't be able to take it at all, might as well go crazy. It seems this town wasn't as safe as she assumed. Who would be so heartless to do such a thing? Leah's mom queried the detectives, but they had no answer for her, opting to lower their head instead. The case is still under investigation, then you both should be out there finding the culprit, fumed Jenny. That's the problem, Julie said, turned his attention on Leah. Your daughter is currently an accused person in this case. What? Leah was stunned. She totally didn't expect that. Excuse me? Jenny's brows narrowed together, her gaze was dark and icy. From her body language, it was obvious she would fight anybody who dared touch her daughter. What are you talking about? According to our investigation, prior to her death, turns out Alexa had sent a message to her friend Caroline Garcia and your name was mentioned. Jenny sprang up to her, admonishing them severely. When I let you into this room, you clearly told me you wanted to speak to my daughter, not accuse her of a crime she undoubtedly didn't commit. Julie stood to his feet and argued, we are not accusing her of anything, just confirming the information. You won't be confirming anything anymore. Jenny interjected with anger. Mom, I don't say a word. Jenny growled at her daughter, who had no option than to close her mouth. I do not know much about the law, but I know I have the right to remain silent and not answer your questions, Julie persisted. Mrs. Jenny, I'm calling my lawyer, she informed them, and without wasting time, took her cell phone out of the pocket of her blazer. If your daughter didn't do anything wrong, why would you need an attorney? Huffed Chris, who had been silent all this time. Phone pressed against her ear, she glared at him while Leah watched the unfolding drama helplessly. Jenny cursed out loud when the call wouldn't connect. She then tossed the phone to the bed and grabbed her purse instead. She rummaged through her stuff until she found a card. My daughter Leah would not make any statement nor answer any of your questions without speaking with her attorney. She stood firm. You're making a huge deal out of my lawyer will take it from here. She held out her attorney's card to Julie, who obviously still had a lot to say. He accepted the card reluctantly. Thank you, she released a fake smile. Now I would appreciate it if you find your way out. As you can see, my daughter has to recover. Jenny dismissed them politely. Leah could feel Chris scrutinizing her as he dropped one final glance on her before leaving with her partner. We will meet again, Julie remarked. Unfortunately, mother and daughter couldn't exactly pinpoint who he was referring to, but there was a huge probability it was Leah. Did you discover anything? Julie asked Chris as soon as they walked out of the room. Chris released a rugged breath and answered, she's not the one, but she seems to know something besides. She has an alibi. Julie looked up, surprised yet with a doubtful look on his face. How would you know that easily? Can you read thoughts or something? Moreover, is not like the crimes are written clearly on their faces. Her eyes were clear and brilliant. She's too calm. Even if one is innocent, people tend to panic when they're informed of their involvement with a crime, he explained to Julie, who had a confused look on his face yet pondering on his words. The girl knows something we don't know, or might have seen something related to this case, which was why she was that relaxed. You make quite a point. Julie nodded in agreement, but we can't question her directly anymore. What should we do? Chris smiled and rubbed his chin, an excited glint in his eyes. Sometimes you don't need to do anything. People who are destined to meet would surely meet. Lost in his trance, a smile moved Chris's mouth to the sound. The girl took her father's eyes. Julie gave Chris a puzzled look. What was he talking about? The partner assigned to him today was definitely weird. He glanced down at the badge on the inside of his jacket and stared at Chris. What division did you say you're from again? Something flashed in Chris's eyes but he didn't show it. Are we going for an examination? Why are you so curious about my division? Do I have to repeat myself again? Julie worked his jaw but didn't say anything, but he had a nagging feeling. This assigned partner of his wasn't who he seemed to be. Well, since this case was a joint investigation and the higher-up had added him to his team, he had no other say in the matter. Meanwhile, Jenny was spacing up and down the room, hand on her waist while the other was rubbing her head with an anxious look on her face. "Mom, you're making me dizzy," Leah complained, but her mom ignored her. She sat up, irritated. "Just calm down, Mom, I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" her mom snapped. "Leah, they are talking murder here. Let's think it over, all right? Alexa was killed yesterday, but Mom, I've been in the hospital all this while, so I've got a concrete alibi already," Leah reasoned. With a heavy sigh, Jenny plunked down on the bed and rubbed her face with her palm. Just a few minutes, but she had already aged 10 years from thinking. Leah crawled towards her mother and wrapped her arms around her waist, resting her head on Jenny's shoulder. "Thanks for defending me, Mom." She inhaled her scent and hugged her tighter. With a weak smile, she turned around and embraced her daughter more comfortably, running her hands through her dark hair. "As far as I'm alive, I won't let anyone bully you nor your siblings. You guys are everything to me right now." A tear fell off Leah's cheek. She wondered if her mom would still treat her the way she does now once she finds out the truth about her. Her father had hidden a lot from her mother, but she was hiding a lot more. Once everything comes to the limelight, would she still accept her as a daughter or a monster? Or maybe she could leave before then. No, she couldn't do that. She couldn't abandon her mother. But what if she staying puts them in danger? Leah was disturbed. Would staying with her family be a blessing or a curse? Yes, she was strong enough to protect them, but she wasn't Superwoman. She couldn't be everywhere at once. Moreover, her power was destructive. What if she ends up injuring them instead of protecting them? "Sorry," her mom apologized, but Leah didn't understand why she was rendering an apology until Jenny asked, "Doesn't your arm ache? Aren't you supposed to cry in pain?" That was when it dawned on her that her mom had hit her bandaged arm by mistake and she hadn't reacted the way a normal human would. "Ouch! That should be the last of your stuff, Leah." "Leah? Hey?" Leah tore her gaze from the door when Daniel nudged her on the shoulder. "Sorry," she apologized and tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. "What are you staring at?" Daniel asked. "Nothing," she was quick to reply. Daniel's brows knitted together. He then dropped her bag on her bed and sat beside her. "You know I'm your mate, Leah. I can tell when something is going on with you." She turned to meet his inquisitive gaze but bit down on her lips instead of replying to him. "You can tell me anything." Daniel cupped her chin and urged her to open up. She was hesitant but finally said, it's about Asher. He was surprised. Leah could tell from Daniel's expression, but he didn't expose any further emotions. What about him? I feel like he's avoiding me. Something flashed in Daniel's eyes, but Leah was not looking, so didn't notice it. And why would he do that? He asked. She glanced up. It's been a whole day. Asher hasn't visited nor called me on the phone, and when I did call, he didn't answer. She was finally discharged from the hospital and would be leaving with her family. Expecting to see Asher, who would come in the guise of saying good night to his favorite student, she had been utterly disappointed. Maybe he is busy with something? Asher is always busy with something, school or clan, but he somehow makes out time to spend with me, Leah explained to him. Or maybe there is no maybe in this, Leah interrupted him with a mean pout. He's probably scared of my wolf. Your wolf? She saw the confused expression on his face and replied immediately, it's nothing. Leah scolded herself mentally. Was she seriously about to tell Daniel that her wolf side, who's supposed to be madly in love with him, took over and fooled around with her other mate? I can't wait to go home. She awkwardly changed the topic and tried to rise from the bed, but Daniel grabbed her hand and halted her. He persisted. You were saying something. Leah gulped. Had he somehow noticed she was keeping something from him? Daniel was sharp, but she was smarter. Have you noticed how blue your eyes are? Leah purposely leaned closer, making sure her scent enveloped him. Without her necklace, she knew it was nearly impossible for Daniel to resist her scent. Daniel stiffened. She smiled wickedly in her head. He had forgotten all about the question. Holding his gaze, Leah continued to lean closer and closer until their breaths were mingling together. His eyes had darkened and his nails were digging into the bed. Leah noticed all these, yet continued to tempt him by lightly brushing her lips with his. Just as Daniel tried to capture her lips, she drew back intentionally and giggled. His eyes further darkened. She was teasing him. Daniel leaned in again, but she repeated the same action, which soon evolved into a cat and mouse game. Agitated and left with no patience, he growled, tackled her to the bed, and trapped her with his body. Unfortunately, the door was opened at that very moment. I hope you are done parking. Jenny trailed off as soon as she saw the scene that welcomed her. Everyone froze. Mom, what's going? Rex, who was behind his mother, tried to peep into the room, but his eyes were covered at once while Jenny shut the door. Trevor and Ben's eyes connected, but they both didn't say a word. They had seen enough. With a scream, Leah pushed Daniel off her body. Gosh, that was so embarrassing. How could her mom of all people see her in that situation? She felt like banging her head against the wall. By her side, Daniel was grinning like an idiot. At least Jenny has finally witnessed that he's stupidly in love with her daughter. It would probably give him an advantage over Asher when the time comes, right? Just because he and Asher decided to get along for the sake of their mate doesn't mean he still isn't competing with him. Asher is still his love rival and nemesis. Yes, he would do his best to respect his mate's wishes and decisions, but the competition was still a competition, period. He had to gain more points by getting on his future mother-in-law's good side. If only Leah knew what he was thinking, she would have puked blood or beaten him black and blue. After a few minutes, Jenny tried the door again, hoping to God she would get a decent view this time. Though Daniel looks like a good boy, but this boyfriend of her daughter seems to have a big appetite, Jenny thought. She would have to talk to her daughter about him later. But wait a minute, hope they use protection. I'm done, Mom, Leah told her mother with a crooked smile. There was a faint blush on her face. God, this is so stupid. She scratched the back of her head awkwardly. But she jumped out of her skin when someone's hand found its way around her waist. Mom, we're done. Daniel flashed his sparkly white teeth at her, leaving poor Jenny stunned. With a hint of bewilderment, she croaked, Mom? Her eyes resting on his hand on her daughter's waist. Leah glared at Daniel. She had warned him to keep his hands to himself whenever her mom's around. Sadly, the stubborn alpha didn't release her at all. Damn him! Aren't you too clingy for a man your age? Trevor asked this time, attracting everyone's attention. These past days Trevor had not failed to show his sheer dislike of Daniel, and it was continually pissing Leah off. Why was her brother becoming such a douche? But she defended her boyfriend before he could say a word. He's not being clingy, this is how couples in love with each other behave. And he's not that old, asshole, Leah sassied back, before rubbing her affection all over his face. Of course, how would you know? You've never been in love, she told Trevor pointedly. Why you? All right, this is it. Knock it out, the both of you. Jenny stepped in this time. Any more insulting remarks, you would have me to face. She boomed. She then faced Trevor. Daniel is your sister's boyfriend and your elder. So you would respect him at all times, understood? But Mom understood. Understood. Trevor finally concurred with her decision. Now apologize. Trevor whipped his head up, fire burning in his eyes, and tried to complain, but his mom's warning shut him up. His fury swept over Daniel as he apologized insincerely. I'm sorry. Apology accepted, answered Daniel nonchalantly. He didn't bother with the apology, having known it was insincere. If not for the fact that the little pain in the ass was his mate's brother, he would have taught him a lesson already. I'm sorry for his behavior. He's usually a good kid. But I don't understand why he is suddenly like that. Jenny rendered her own apology. She too felt her son's hypocritical apology. No, Mom, I'm good. The corners of Leah's mouth quirked when she heard Daniel still refer to Jenny with that title. When their eyes connected, Leah gave her mom a grateful smile. It was obvious Jenny would have scolded her for using that kind of tone and language on her brother, but she intentionally gave her face because of the presence of her boyfriend. Are we leaving or what? Rex, who was irritated by their delay, flipped out. All right, let's move. Jenny urged everyone out of the room. Because the car wouldn't be enough for all, Leah had to leave with Daniel in his car, but Jenny insisted Rex had to go with them. The reason was obvious. Thanks to the appearance of her little brother, Leah couldn't sit with Daniel in the front seat because she had to keep Rex company in the back seat. The journey was incredibly quiet and odd. Daniel could not relax with the little buddy scrutinizing him intently. He couldn't tell if Rex liked him or not. Trevor didn't like him for God knows why, so he wouldn't bet on this one. How did you two meet? Rex, who had been quiet all this time, asked. Daniel's eyes met with Leah's through the rear-view mirror. Daniel smiled warmly at him. It was love at first sight, soapy Rex complained, causing Daniel's heart to sink. Had he just failed his brother-in-law's test? But I like it, Rex added, causing Daniel's eyes to lit up with joy. I like you, the young boy confessed. My sister smiles because of you. Leah frowned at him. Too much information, Rex. Daniel thought he would die from the excessive joy in his heart. He has won the young brother-in-law's favor. One more to go. Trevor would be hard to win over, but he would try his best. Since it seems flattery and goodies won't change his mind about him, he might as well be himself. So now he has won 2 hearts, remaining 1. Can Asher beat that? Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.